Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I'm your host, Viz, and tonight our guests are writer director Kurt Wimmer and our returning guest, star Kate Moyer from the movie Children of the Corn, which is premiering tomorrow, March 3rd, in theaters. Guys, welcome to the show. I hope you're doing well. And before we get started, Kate, I really got to tip my hat to you in this performance. You completely freaked me out. We when you were on the show last year, we sort of touched upon the movie, but we couldn't talk too much about it. Having seen it now, oh my god, you were just so amazing. Kurt, did she freak you out while she was in character at all?
No, she freaked me out, but I was just enraptured by her performance because she did such a great job. And her and I, we really were a team. We worked together. It's crazy, because definitely a grown man and she's a little girl, but we worked really well together. I didn't talk to her like a kid. We just spoke director and actor, and we just did everything we could to bring the performance to her and capitalize on her tremendous strengths that I learned more and more about every day. And the more I learned about them, the more I would sort of alter the character to highlight those strengths.
I mean, oh my god, you gotta imagine, I watched this movie, and here's a girl that I spoke to last year, one of the nicest girls you'll ever meet, and I'm absolutely terrified of her on the screen. I mean, she is like the embodiment of evil. Now, Kurt, this movie has been delayed now for a while. Did you ever think that this movie would never see the light of day?
Well, yeah. Well, listen, we all went through this thing with COVID, right? I mean, theaters were closed. People were afraid to go. And it really wasn't until last summer, that Maverick came out and people said, oh, okay, maybe theatrical will be back, which we all. And then the conversation it started to have about this movie. But yeah, we didn't know, Kate. I mean, like until a couple months ago, really, that we didn't know. I mean, it's pretty unnerving to think that you put so much work in it. You go through such an adventure. I'll tell you, whether you know or not, that we started shooting April 2020, and we were the only film shooting on Earth
Yeah.
for the entirety of our shoot in April, May of 2020. So to go through all of that and then, like, oh, maybe no one will ever see this movie. And me knowing that Kate and Elena did what I thought was such an amazing performance. It's like, God, what a crime that would be.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I absolutely agree. April 2020 was the start of the lockdown, and people were locked away in their homes. Now, Kate, being a little bit older now, looking back on your performance with Eden, who's your character, we heard Kurt explain it. How much of influence, help was Kurt with you in bringing out this amazing performance?
I wouldn't say it wasn't so much as an influence as it was like a partner kind of thing, or it was very collaborative. We basically, like, when I was in quarantine for 2 weeks. We would have like Zoom calls with Kurt, Elena, and I, where we would just like ad lib and go through, try and get in the headspace of our characters before we went on set, so we weren't like figuring it out on day one.
Mm-hmm.
But also Kurt allowed me to have a lot of creative liberty when it came to Eden, because there was a lot of me that I put into Eden, and I feel like that helped make it like more believable.
I gotta ask you though, as 3 years ago, for someone in your generation, your age group, that's a lifetime. Okay, so 3 years ago, you were so much younger. Where did you draw upon the evilness from? I gotta ask you.
So it's always there, in my brain. No, I'm kidding. I'm not really sure. I wasn't Eden. To me, she was manipulative, and she kills people, but she wasn't like outwardly evil, in my opinion, the way I saw her. Because I obviously have some bias where I know a little bit more background on her character, and I understand why she's come to this point and how she has. But I feel like it wasn't about like getting into this evil space. It was about like merging myself with like the scene and how Eden would emote during
Exactly.
this scene.
And this is a Go on.
If I could just add to that, if you don't mind, is, I mean, let's be honest, everybody who gets it in this movie has it coming.
Mm-hmm.
Except Ashley and Sissy, I think. But the pastor Penny's. She's the guy who takes her in the foster home. It's implied that there was abuse there. Everybody in the town's corrupt.
Yeah.
So is it evil to punish evil?
Yeah, yeah, and I do like, Kurt, that you do not only show one side of Eden, you do show us multiple layers of her personality, and people are gonna have to watch to find out exactly what I'm talking about. Now, Kurt, rebooting a classic film like this, um, any classic film, it's a slippery slope with fans. What gave you the confidence that you can present this story in a way in the year, in modern times that it can be successful again?
Well, I just say interesting question, because it's not so much about confidence. I'm confident I can do it. I mean, you never know how a movie's going to turn out. I mean, there's so many unknowns,
Mm-hmm.
like performance, environment. Is it going to rain? There's so many things. So, but uh, unfortunately, today, if you're going to make a movie and you want people to see it, they won't make it unless it's based on something else. If it's a remake, a sequel, a prequel, and or it's based on a comic book. So that's kind of what a lot of what you ended up the only choices you have on the menu. So, and then then that after that, it's the same process as making any film. You just have to you just have to go for it. You got to go for it.
Give your own version, put the past in the past, the old version lives among itself, and present an entirely different take on the story.
That's right. And it's funny because you get people out there, kids, they're fans, they like what they say. I've seen some things who say, well, why isn't more, and they haven't seen the movie. Where's Malachi? There's no Malachi. I mean, that's what it is. But like, there's been 11 of those, haven't there? So I'm like, let's do it up a little bit differently and create a new character. But also, what a lot of people don't realize is that Malachi is in this movie because Malachi doesn't live in this town. This town is not Gateway. This is Rylestone, which is a neighboring town. And it's implied that it's a prequel, and that Kate says in the movie, other kids in other towns are going to see what we've done, and they're going to take their towns too, because they're tired of having their futures frittered away. And so the implication is that this was the powder keg that set out, that then spread to Gateway.
Okay.
So that's why there's no Malachi and there's no Isaac, because it's a different town.
Awesome. Now, Kate, Kurt gives us a more detailed explanation about what's going on, what could possibly be going on and is going on in those cornfields. Did you watch the original either when you booked the role, before, after you booked it, to sort of get a background on the story, or did you want to go into this with a fresh mindset?
This is gonna make some people angry, but I did not watch the first movie. I didn't. My horror pop culture is not as big as I hope it or wish it would be. But I didn't really know what it was before, and my parents, they definitely filled me in of like the overarching story of all the movies, mainly the first one and what it's about. And I feel like while it would have helped me to watch the first movie, I feel like it benefited me that I didn't, because
I agree.
because I was able to create this character, and I didn't feel pressured to conform to what other characters have done in the past. I feel like I could create this new character from a blank slate.
Absolutely. Now, Kurt, like I said, you give us some more detailed insight to what is going on in those cornfields. Was that your take from watching the original whenever you watched it, and you wanted to give it to us in this film?
Well, in some senses, yeah, because really what I took my inspiration was the original source material, which Stephen King wrote in the 1970s. But I was aware that there's a lot of talk in these movies about he who walks behind the roads, but we never see him. And in one sense, I understand that he is a psychological conceit. That it doesn't, sometimes it's more powerful not to see him. But after 11 movies, maybe I thought maybe it's time, and especially if people are going to pay to go see the movie, or you pay $10 to see the movie or $5 to rent it or whatever it is. Let's entertain them.
Yeah.
Let's stop messing around. If they don't want to see them, they can watch. There's 10 others they can watch. But if they do want to see them, now they have one.
Yeah, I totally agree. And out of all the times this film has attached the title, I really like this one the best. Next to the original. Now, Kate, going back to your character Eden, do you think Eden is controlled by the man who walks the way it's stated in this film? Is she possessed, in your opinion, or just influenced by whatever's in those cornfields?
See, there's the way Kurt wrote the script, there's a lot of mysteries. There's a lot of like, I know he wanted everyone to kind of leave the theater and be like, asking questions, because you don't want to watch a movie and like sometimes all the questions are answered,
Yeah.
and you don't dwell on it or think about it too much. So I think I'm not really sure, because there's so many different theories or things that could be impacting Eden, or if is it a hallucination? Is she possessed? Is this, is she the corn monster? I don't know. I'm not even completely sure, and it was 3 years ago.
Well, let me interject, I wrote it and I directed. I'm not sure. I like not being sure. I like not knowing the answers. But there's a couple of things. First of all, these kids were playing this. The cornfield is their playground.
Yeah.
But we all know it's dying, and we know this fungus, like these ergot-like funguses, grow on dying crops that cause hallucinations. Bolin is clearly hallucinating at the beginning of the film. She talks about it. So, there's the question of whether that monster is real, whether it's, in a way, it's like Puff the Magic Dragon. It's like, is it her monster? Is the monster a manifestation of her id, of all the bad things that have happened to her?
Yeah.
Is the monster something that, out of trauma, she's manifested?
That, yeah.
So, is she influenced by the monster, or is the monster created by her? Because at the end she looks at him and says, I'm sorry. Because, and is she talking to the monster, or is she talking to Earth itself? Like she failed. She was trying to, Ian was trying to save Earth, basically. And Earth is the town that they live in, the corn. And she fails, thanks, Bolin. Thanks, Bolin. But she fails, and she says, I'm sorry. And it's quite tragic, to me.
You mentioned that was a very sad moment when she says, I'm sorry, and she realizes that she failed in what she was supposed to ultimately accomplish. Kurt, do you have a lot of experience directing young actors? Is this your first time having a whole set full of young actors? And how do you maintain control on the set?
What a great question. First of all, I've worked with a couple young actors. To varying degrees of success, but nothing like the young lady you have here. I mean, this is like, okay, I'll do this all day long. But I was concerned because, we've all seen movies with lots of kids. They always, when they make movies like It or whatever, these kids are, these are 15, 16-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And, nobody casts 11-year-olds because it's so dangerous, because you just don't know what you're going to get, because, do they have the maturity to hold the screen? I mean, that's a big, big deal. People like Al Pacino can do it, but there's a lot of adults that can't do it.
Yeah.
And so it's charisma and it's self-discipline. But we just have one. We had lots of kids, and just one kid staring off into space or looking in the camera kills the entire shot. But these kids were great. So, it was like, okay, me and my first AD, Sean Hunter, we're about to become, fourth grade teachers for the next 3 months or 2.5 months. And so I was well aware of the danger, and I was like, I don't know, man. But like I said, you just got to go for it. We're going for it. No. And thank God. And, also Kate was great too, because they looked to her. They all learned how to act. These kids, some of them were non-actors. We shot in Australia. Some of them were non-actors. But by the end, they were all actors, all of them. And then that's how, in that monster's walking into the barn, every one of those kids is acting like a true professional, and that's very, very difficult. And a lot of them, they learned to act from Kate. By watching her, they learned how to act. It was really amazing. They were all in acting school and they didn't know it. and Kate didn't know she was a teacher, but I observed it, and it absolutely happened.
Must have been magical. Now, Kate, you and Elena carry this film. Basically, it really is the two of you. Um, did you know you that at that age, going back 3 years ago, that you would have this much added responsibility? Or at 11, it didn't really compute that you'd be, part of carrying an entire film.
I mean, it definitely did. I was definitely nervous, but I thought it would be a challenge for me because, this would have been, this is the biggest role that I've ever had. And, it's in Australia, it's far away. There's just great opportunities there. And I was really excited because, Eden is like such a strong and like, as Kurt puts it, go-getter.
Hmm.
And I feel that it was not only an important, um, story to portray, but, it was a challenge for me as the actor.
Now, Kate, shooting a film, a horror movie, it's not scary when you're shooting it. Watching it is a whole different story. What were your reactions when you watched the final product?
Well, near the end, I was kind of hiding behind my blanket the entire time because I don't like horror movies. But I was really happy with the way it came out because I could definitely see, what Kurt was envisioning. And, I think like a lot, all of the hard work really came together and it shows.
Hmm. Yeah, it does. Now, Kurt, Eden in the beginning of the film has a black, like, cowboy hat on. Is that a throwback to the original with, I believe it was Isaac and his black hat? Or was it
Well,
just
no,
coincidental?
oh no, no. Well, they had kind of, and I'm just saying it because it's sort of more of an old school Mennonite type hat.
Hmm.
It's very different. She was wearing a cowboy hat because she's wearing cowboy boots and she has a actual gun holster, but it has flowers in it.
Yeah.
Because she's just do what kids doing what we did when we were kids. You playing dress ups, cowboys and Indians or whatever it is. So it really had nothing to do with the original thing. And the other thing is in the original movie they wore those hats because they wore those vests and the white shirts. It was very much it was very much kind of an Amish and nothing against the Amish whatsoever, but it was sort of an Amish influence thing.
Yeah.
But she was doing it as dress up because she lives in this fantasy world. She's been through a lot of trauma,
Hmm.
a lot of trauma, and so she expresses it by creating this big fantasy world out in the corn. But the adults are they're destroying her playground, and so she fights back. She's highly goal oriented girl.
Absolutely. Throughout the film, the term "the man" in this film, the term is used, "the man who walks."
He who
Uh,
walks.
yeah, exactly. He who walks. During that last scene when they're in the barn, and Kate says again, "He who walk." I really thought she was going to say the full 1984 line, "He who walks behind the rose," but you didn't have her say it that way. Was it any reason in particular you wanted to shorten that line? Was it just to change
Yeah,
things up?
yeah, because it sounds better. He who walks. I mean, it says it all.
Yeah.
When you say he who walks, because usually that goes without saying that people walk.
Hmm.
But when you say he who walks, it means wait a minute, he doesn't usually walk. What's going on? It's creepier. So he who walks behind the rose, or he who walks to the store. It's like everything after he walks seems to me kind of unnecessary
Okay.
because I'm scared already when you say he who walks. I'm like, I don't want to meet that guy.
Oh yeah, especially when it's coming from Eden. Now, Kate, before we go, I'll throw the last question to you. How do you think this film is going to resonate with your generation of horror fans?
Ooh, okay. Well, there are like an unbelievable amount of layers and references and like issues that are kind of tackled or mentioned in this movie, and I feel like it makes the movie you know scarier because it's so relevant into for issues today, like environmental issues, or like there's like intergenerational conflict, like Kurt has said before. But putting that aside, there's also the main two characters, Bo and Eden. They're I find them, other than the murdering part, they're pretty relatable characters. They both have the same sort of goals, and they have different ways of getting them. And I feel like, Eden's, she's ambitious and she's determined, and I feel like, I hope people can, be inspired by that and apply it to their own lives.
Well, she is definitely a powerful girl.
I, if I can just add to, listen, I think kids, other girls, are going to look at it and they're going to really enjoy it because it's. Let's be clear, there's some wish fulfillment in this movie because what kid, at all of us at some point in our life, we would say, God, I'd like to kill my parents,
Yeah.
And so I think, it's just like again I said earlier, it's just like watching Scarface. We allow ourselves to go on that journey because we would all like to, be like Tony Montana at a certain point.
Absolutely.
So I really think that kids are going to be like, yeah, I can totally get behind that agenda.
Yeah, I think kids are going to. I think kids are going to love it because it shows kids being empowered, and I totally see them falling in love with it. The movie was great. Congratulations to the both of you. You did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed this film. Again, Children of the Corn, guys. It's coming out tomorrow in theaters, and it's coming out later this month to on demand. Definitely watch this film. You won't be disappointed. Don't be thrown off that there were so many other films bearing the name Children of the Corn. This is something completely different. Kurt directed, wrote the film. Kate is the star. Congratulations again to the both of you. I want to thank our audience, those of you who are tuning in live and those who will be watching this later on. On behalf of Kurt Wimmer and Kate Moyer and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.